welcome Alex Neumann. For people who don't know, Alex is fresh off an amazing run at the last PPA tournament, where he faced and defeated several well-known household pickleball names, including let's see, who was it? Tyler Loon. Oh, and who was your first round match?
I played sort of a newer player. I think Dominico first round. I
Okay.
played Tyler, then Hayden, and then Jay.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's three. Yeah, that's three household names, and then of course facing off against Tyson in the semifinals, right? Yeah,
Semifinals.
it's awesome. So just wanted to get him in for a quick chat and interview and help people find out who's Alex. Like I was watching the chats, and every like 10 or 15 minutes, everyone was like, "Who's this Alex Neumann guy? I've never heard of him." So I was in there being like, "He's from New York. He's great." Just letting everyone know, and I think people are really looking forward to seeing you play more on the tour. Let's get into a little bit more about just like your background, the usual questions that people have asked, like, where are you from? What did you play? I think we all know that you play tennis, but just give us a little rundown of your history.
Yeah, no, totally. It's funny because no one when I got the big wins this past week, like no one knew what my name was, and someone called me Kevin. And I was trying to figure out like what the deal was. That brings that back a little bit, but yeah. So I'm from California originally. I grew up in like the San Francisco Bay Area. I played competitive junior tennis growing up, but I was never particularly good. I went to a high school that was super tennis focused. So a lot of people, most of my friends played tennis. Most of them better than me. Most of them went on to play high level college tennis. I did not. I was a practice player in college. I always wanted to be better than that, but I wasn't. Um, so yeah, I played tennis growing up. Always had that sort of competitive spirit. Um, and I got into pickleball about a year or so after college. I went to Northwestern, so California to Chicago, and
Chicago.
spent like a year in Iowa after college, and then moved to New York last year. So
Oh, what were you doing in Iowa?
I was working for a campaign. I spent like a year doing politics after I graduated.
Oh, nice, nice. Isn't that where Tyson's from? Oh, is he from Idaho?
He's from
Actually,
Idaho. He
got
lives
it,
in,
got it.
yeah, somewhere closest to Washington State in Idaho.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, okay, so and at what point in your like sort of playing pickleball did you start thinking like, oh, I could, actually play this at the highest level?
So I don't really know if there was a point that I thought like I definitely can do this at the highest level. I think there was a point that I decided to take it seriously and see what could happen. I played like really on and off a few random times when I was growing up, when I was in high school, and then didn't play for years and years. And when I brought it back, it was sort of like right when COVID started, which is around the time that I finished college, and I had been kind of moving around doing like more of a nomad thing, going city to city, and I was trying to get back into tennis as like my sort of workout, like exercise
Mhm.
regimen. And I found it super hard to like find tennis hits and like stay really focused on that because it's just much harder after college to find people that are like at your level and like on
Mhm.
competition. And I was just getting less out of it, and it was proving to be super difficult. And so I found myself like gravitating towards the local pickleball communities wherever I was. So I spent like 2 months in Seattle. I spent a few months in Park City, and I like found myself all like driving every day, even if I didn't have a game to like play alone and like, with any random 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 group that was there.
Mhm.
And one day I was in Park City, and I was about to leave to like move to the East Village in New York. And I was like waking up at 5:30 one day to play pickleball, and I hate waking up in the morning. And I was driving my car. It was like a 45-minute drive to this like place where I play pickleball indoors, and I thought to myself like this is nuts how much I like doing this. Like I'd never
Yeah.
done this for tennis or anything else, and I'd only been doing it for fun. Like I hadn't been taken seriously at all. And so I
Right.
kind of that moment was like, I probably should um like think about doing this more because I just have so much fun playing it. And that same day, I went on YouTube and searched up like pro pickleball just to see what the scene was like. And I remember when I was doing it in high school once or twice, I like looked it up on YouTube and was like, oh, this looks kind of silly. Like there's
Mhm.
in it. It looks like it's not really very serious. And I was just shocked to see on YouTube like how much it had appeared to grow. Um,
Mhm.
And so the combination of how much I was having fun and seeing what the pro tour seemed to look like got me super excited. And I sort of like pledged to myself that once I moved to New York, I would give it my best go, which was a bit ironic because I moved to a place where there was less pickleball and worse weather. But that week I made the decision, and yeah, from there I've been really focused on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we all can relate to, that sudden realization, like, am I actually insane? Like, am I like in a cult? Because everyone from the outside, they're like, literally all you talk about is pickleball. Like,
Yeah.
once you're in it, you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, this is why everyone's so obsessed with it. So like talking about drilling versus playing, like what is your kind of ideal ratio? Like, what are you doing now? And like, what would you aspire to? And like, what else are you doing for training?
So I hadn't drilled at all, obviously, when I was playing for fun. When I moved to New York, I started drilling a little bit more. I would say my ideal ratio would be to play like as many days a week as I could without overworking or wasting or like feeling tired. So probably 5 days a week and for shorter periods of drilling. Um, because of like work and the weather and just how hard it is to find courts in New York, I would say I end up probably playing more like 3 to 4 times a week. um, I definitely think it's way more important to drill, um, 3 to 4 times out of those 4 times and play matches
Hmm.
once every week or 2. I think the only importance of match play is, like, 1, just to get back into that competitive, like, spirit or fire if you're approaching a tournament,
Hmm.
uh, or if, like, you aren't getting doubles practice and you wanna practice doubles and, like, you can't drill doubles. But otherwise, I think pretty much drilling does the same thing. I play a lot of, like, games and sort of like, different types of things to stimulate competition when I'm drilling.
Hmm.
So I would definitely be drilling and like working out way more than playing matches.
Got it. Yeah. Like, so in terms of like physical, like, do you like go to the gym quite often, or like, is that not yet part of the routine? And
Yeah, no, I mean, I've actually the one benefit about being in New York and it being so cold and having like little access to pickleball is that I'm focusing on my fitness more than I ever have in my career prior.
Mhm.
And also like doing a lot more like sports focused fitness and not just fitness to, go to the gym and run around.
Yeah,
Uh,
beach muscles. Right?
Yeah, 100%. So, like, I've been doing a lot more, like, stretching and trying to get super flexible, and I would say, like, 3 out of 4 of my, gym sessions are just, like, working on my legs, working on my, like, just speed and quickness, like, doing sprint intervals, trying to really simulate playing pickleball.
Hmm.
I would say I probably do that, like, for, 1 to 1 for every day that I play pickleball, I also, do that. So that's been, like, a blessing in disguise is it's not always warm, so if it's cold, I'll just go to the gym and do something else.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's like the one thing that I noticed the difference between like rec play. It's like you can go rec play, you'd be like, I can play 5 hours, no problem, right? But like when I played in a tournament, I played like one match of 3 games, and then afterwards, I was like, I am exhausted, and I think like a lot of it is like the adrenaline that's pumping through, and like the
Yeah.
nerves. Your body is just on a different level. So like even though your tournament play, like I mean, the whole day is just like so exhausting, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like I think everyone's had the experience of, you go out for a Sunday morning at 9 AM and all of a sudden it's like 3 PM and you're like, "Should we do one more game or not?"
Yeah.
Like, you feel tired, but like, that's the worst kind of day because for me at least, because you don't get a lot out of the matches and you're just like throwing your body for a loop and you're getting worse on almost as you're playing. But it feels like you can play it forever. And it's because, like you said, you're not exerting a lot of physical or mental energy playing. Totally this, different experience in a tournament. My first tournament in Florida on this trip, I only won a match or two. So I only played probably, you know, 5, 6 games of pickleball. 2 games to 11, 2 games to 11, 1 game to 15.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was sore the next day. And I was like, what, I played more than this, like for a quick session, like an hour. And you're
Yeah.
right, just like the combination of you're really focused and you're going for every ball. And I think I learned for the first time this past week that that becomes super important when you get to the later rounds because those guys are used to it. And, it isn't about how you perform in the first round. If you win an easier, and hard games, it's about if you still have enough energy literally to compete when you get to the finals. All these guys are super fit. All these guys are working on their fitness, and still almost everyone is cramping. Everyone's rolling out. Everyone's
Mm.
using their guns like on their legs. I mean, everyone is just like doing everything they can and they're still cramping. So definitely learned the importance of my previous fitness. And I'm going to be, I think, even more um, focused on that after.
Mm.
bring it back to New York.
Nice. Like, yeah, because I remember seeing somewhere like, everyone comments like, oh, Ben, he is like not a morning person. So a lot of these early matches, he looks like a laid back person in general, but like a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, he's exerting maybe like 3 out of 10 in terms of like effort. And so like that conservation of energy is like super key. And like, I wonder how much of, the reason like you go through all of your matches until like, if you make it to the finals, then you get rest, right? Like, will that change over time? Will like as like tournaments sort of like progress or like the sport progresses, will like people get more time in between matches, or is this just the way that pickleball works? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, back in the days where I played junior tennis, tournaments were always structured pretty standardly, such that like you always knew you would see the draw beforehand, and every match had like a time on it where like you knew no matter who played that match, like the semis were going to be on Saturday at 4 p.m. and they spaced out all the matches accordingly. And in
Mm-hmm.
pickleball, you're right, it's different. Like they fit in all of the matches for one bracket in
Event,
a
yeah.
single day, and you don't know until you get a text when that match is going to go on. I think there are probably general like guidelines of they give people like 15 minutes rest after they finish their match, and they're waiting for the courts to finish. But you kind of just wait for a text, and it can be a little bit difficult because you're not sure. Should I stretch? Should I go get food? Should I go get
Mm-hmm.
logged in again? And then, my experience this week was after I won my quarterfinal match, I waited for like 2.5 hours. It's just in the tent because I was waiting for like 3 matches to finish on center
Mm-hmm.
court. And then as I was walking back to my chair after I lost to Tyson, I heard on the loudspeaker, next up on center court, Alex Neumann for his consolation match. And I was
Oh
like,
my God.
that is really, that's crazy. So I would hope it'll change, but I think what's different about it now is like they've sort of aligned on how they want to run tournaments this year, which is one bracket per day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think all that would change perhaps is like, more structure around the times, but they seem to want to, at least for now, like they make the choices about what matches to put where in real time. And so that leads to a lot of changes. I think the only thing that would change is if they suddenly decided to, we're going to have, this match, men's semi, women's final, and they pre-schedule that, then you'll know
Mm-hmm.
more about what you're doing. Otherwise, yeah, it's kind of um, like you have no clue what's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think also the fact that people are playing sometimes 3 different brackets all in one weekend, right? So it's like they have to do it all
Yeah.
together, right? And like that, I don't think will change. I mean, obviously you might have like some single specialists and you do have some double specialists, but it's like, when you have the ability to take a triple crown in a weekend, it's like, why would people not be doing that, not going for that? So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be very interesting to see like the evolution. The other kind of big question is rally scoring. And it's like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on what rally scoring would do, at least for singles. Doubles, I feel like that is just a completely different game, but singles seems a little bit more, attainable in terms of making rally scoring a thing. Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts?
Yeah. I've heard rumblings about it. I kind of like how it is right now. I think it makes it different than tennis in that there's a lot more opportunity for runs if you're coming back. And it also changes the calculus of like your shot making, in that there's less risk when you're on your serve, and you
Mhm.
have more incentive to like go for shots sometimes. Like it changes how you think about the point because you're not necessarily, going to lose anything if you miss a shot. Versus on the other hand, there's like more pressure on the return because you know that like if you lose a point, you actually lose a point.
Mhm.
And then also as it comes to like match points or big points, in tennis, if you're up 6-4 at a tiebreak, you have 2 match points. Those points are equal pressure for both players because
Mhm.
someone's going to win the point either way. And in pickleball, you could be up 14-0. You really only have 1 match point because, if you lose, it goes back to your opponent's serve and they have control. So I kind of like it how it is. I think it creates a really interesting it's like drama and pressure to each of the matches. And it incentivizes like a lot more aggressive shots and fun shots as opposed to people just playing super tight on the big
Mhm.
points. I think in doubles it does make a little um, more sense potentially, but either way, I think it kind of makes pickleball special. So I'm a fan of
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I'm 100% with you. I do feel like, I played some rec play with rally scoring to 15. And I was like, this is just a completely different game. And like, it felt different. I mean, in some groups and some circles that I've been a part of, they've kind of like resigned themselves to like accepting the fact that it will go that way just because of like the TV deals and like the push to grow the sport. But I really hope that that's something that like they actually do the math and be like, okay, our average match lengths are still pretty within this band, right? It's like, baseball games, they can range from like anywhere between like 2 to 4 hours too. So it's like I just don't buy the time sort of argument yet until we to really see like that data.
Yeah.
But yeah. So kind of back to New York, like besides finding courts that like, I mean, our courts are notorious for just like, we're playing on asphalt with lines and like, you know, not level cracks everywhere, skateboarders running through our courts. Like, what is the other most challenging thing about, being based in New York City? And like, do you feel like it's a detriment to, you developing your game?
Yeah. I it definitely comes with a lot of challenges as you know, like things are just different in a lot of ways. And I would say along this journey when I first moved to New York and started to take this seriously, like at every point I found myself complaining, like at least on the inside, like, oh, I wish there were better courts, I wish it was warmer, I wish there were more players. But I found myself still like coming to these tournaments, and every time I've come to like a new stretch of tournaments, I've like had good results and found myself improving. And so I really go back and forth on how important it is to be in a good environment. Like when I come here, most of the good players are based in places like this, and they're always playing with really good players. And yeah, I'm sure that helps you improve a lot. Um, but I think what is nice about being in a place that has fewer resources is, like I was saying before, it really forces you to focus on what matters. And I'm never wasting a day on rec play. I'm never, spending 6 hours on a game that I don't want to play. I'm only ever working out or playing when I know it's gonna be worthwhile. And if I only have an hour on court, I'm definitely drilling because I haven't
Mhm.
played for the previous 2 days. So I think it kind of balances out, honestly, in that way. The one thing that I will say is the hard part is that there's just not a lot of other players around that have similar like aspirations or are also traveling trying to compete. And I think the mindset is super important. It's really important to be around people who are also trying to go after it, because it's a hard thing to do. And like if you aren't exposed to the level of competition and like the mental game, um, everyone on these courts is really good. Like you're not just going to go and beat someone because you're good. Like you have to get
Mhm.
used to the mental grind of it, and it's difficult to go out there and be exposed to this like whole new way of playing in a important like mental locked in tournament mode and not have experienced it before, and then go back to your home and like feel like you're kind of in the same boat. So I think if I wasn't playing so many tournaments in a row, it can be hard to spend those periods where like you're kind of just on your own trying to
Mm.
really lock into the right mental mindset. But I think hopefully I'll have gotten over that after playing so many tournaments this month that it won't be a issue anymore.
That's really important. Like I think having that support system, like a lot of these players, like, I mean, it's like, and any sort of competitive thing, they always have the people behind the scenes who are like putting in extra work to make sure that you are successful. And I think one thing that I discovered recently as just as like an improving player myself, it's like you have to work hard, but you can find good players. And like I think networking in pickleball is so critical. Like knowing finding the right person to know and then get them to introduce you to the right people. It's just like if you want to take the next step, like you have to know the right people. And so like who would you consider your kind of support system on like on your journey right now?
Yeah, good question. I mean, definitely have to shout out like way back in the day when I first started playing. I was introduced to the sport by my mom in like 2016. When I was finishing up high school, back in the earlier days of the sport, I would say there really wasn't a lot of stuff going on in pickleball. There's actually a pretty prospering pickleball community close to where I live. This place called Mitchell Park in Palo Alto,
Hmm.
close to where I went to high school. My mom started playing and got super into it. So I was actually exposed to like the pickleball community and like the whole hype about it kind of early on. And she was the first person to have me out playing. We played a rec tournament together. We really, I got pretty into it for like a month or two in high school. So that was the reason why I like even knew what pickleball was. Um, I think after that, I would say what really helped me on my journey is when I first moved to New York and made the choice to start taking pickleball seriously. I was very fortunate to find someone else who lived really close by. His name is Matt Woodlitz. Um, as you know, there's not a lot of courts in Manhattan. There's probably actually 0 permanent courts in the entire island to play. But there just
Mhm.
happens to be this place called Stuytown in the East Village, which is where I live, that has paddle tennis courts, which you can use to play pickleball on. And this guy, Matt, had started playing pretty recently. He's also super into it. He played paddle tennis before, so he has a pretty good racket sport background. He's super good and loves playing singles, loves drilling, loves getting better. He also kind of got that fire for pickleball. So he's been the one who I sort of am always training with, always talking strategy with, always trading stories with. He's kept me really going. And this is sort of like my biggest sounding board. Then I would also shout out just the larger pickleball community. So there's a few places in Long Island, this place called Pickle and Par, where Eric Forsyth, Eric Handelman are kind of the main players there, and they organize a lot of games and keep people going. So if I didn't have Matt Sytown or the Erics and Pickle and Par, I would have nobody and no place to play. So definitely
Mhm.
give them credit.
Let's see. So I'm gonna take a little inspiration from Sean Evans from Hot Ones. I was browsing through your Instagram and I noticed your graduation photo was with your two dads. Can you tell us a little about them and like how they shaped you into the person you are today, or and the player you are?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I grew up with two dads. My birth mom, who got me super into pickleball, she's always been a part of my life, but never like I didn't grow up with her like in the household. And she's definitely the more like athletic sort of sports focused one. I think that's where I get most of my love for pickleball and for sports from. So I definitely got that side from her. I think what my dads have done, and I've definitely become a lot more grateful for it as I've gotten older, was two things. So first of all, very broadly, like I've always been someone who kind of goes after what I want and like really goes after things strongly, which this like pickleball thing is an example. Like I've gone kind of crazy about it, and like I'm traveling and I'm doing something kind of weird in terms of how much I'm focused on it. And I think that started back when I was a little kid. My parents couldn't get married for a while. We didn't have equal rights as a family, and they really fought hard when I was younger to be like a big part of the gay marriage movement. They would take us to protest, always be very vocal about what they believed, and sort of taught us to do the same thing. And I think that kind of really instilled in me the value of just always going after what you believed and always doing what you think is right, which in a broader sense is why I got into politics and is why I do pickleball and things like that now. So very grateful for them for that. And secondly, because they were never the most athletic or like competitive people growing up, they never exerted a lot of pressure on me. And like the only pressure that ever came from sports for me was just from myself.
Mm.
Which at the time when I was like a young kid, I was obviously pretty angsty about it, and I wish that they sometimes could coach me more or knew more about tennis and how things worked. But I think because I never received any sort of outside pressure, I never like burned out or got tired of playing, and always really like I was only ever playing because of my personal passion for it. It only ever came from me, which I think allowed me to keep going and find something like pickleball later in life and still have a lot of joy from it. So I think they were very smart as parents, obviously, as I'm sure they would tell you now. They didn't exert a lot of pressure on me then. So now I just do it because I like it, and it's worked out so far.
Yeah, I mean, finding that internal drive, like not needing like external pressure or validation, like I think
Yeah.
that makes such a huge difference when people are trying to achieve like the anything to the highest level. So that's awesome. That's great to hear. Um, what is the most like only in New York City experience that you've had so far, if any? I guess 3 to 4 months is not that
Yeah.
much time, but
Let me see. I would say this is not, I mean, for most people, this might not be like the classic experience, but for me, someone who, likes the things that I like, I guess this was my most classic New York experience. Um, so my friends and I from home have always been super into ping pong because we were all tennis players. So we always played ping pong when we were not playing tennis. And a lot of them live in New York too, like me. And we've had a hard time like finding similar things to do because there's not a lot of, open space to play ping pong or play tennis in the city. And so for one of my friend's birthday parties, he rented out this bar called Spin, which is the super cool bar where it's basically just like a ping pong theme bar, and they have all these tables, and it's just like the coolest thing ever if you like ping pong.
mhm.
We went to this. We went for his birthday on this like special night they were having like a big event at, and they had all these table tennis pros there. And they were playing with iPhones against everyone. They're all these
What instead of
like
paddles?
yeah, like using like literal like their actual iPhones with no cases on them. And everyone there is just kind of random people who don't really play ping pong, and they're all like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they're so good," losing to them. And all my friends and I like challenge the pros, and they're obviously super good with their phones, and better than us. But we are good with paddles, and we had
Yeah.
these really intense rallies with them, phones versus paddles, and that was a pretty cool experience.
That's awesome. That reminds me of like that video of who was it? I think Ben and Kyle playing with like slippers against
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some of the volleyball players. Wow, iPhones like no grip on that. That's impressive. That
Yeah. Well, you can slice it's similar to pickleball paddle sometimes actually, like
okay, yeah,
a paddle, and that slice, all you need is a surface really to just flick down on it. Obviously,
right.
awesome. They were just slicing back everything. If you make contact with the sweet spot of the phone screen, you can hit a really nasty slice. So yeah, it was dirty.
That's hilarious. Were people like gripping the phones in different ways too, or like everyone's like, I don't know, how do you even? I'm trying to imagine. Were they just like this kind of grip or this kind of grip or
Yeah, it was all different. I mean, every shot was different because you have to move your hand so it doesn't get in the way. So they
yeah.
figured it out. I think it's like their classic party trick.
That's so funny. Actually, speaking about like ping pong and tennis, like obviously a lot of tennis players are coming into the single scene, but like when you're thinking about doubles and just the game of pickleball in general, like do you feel like tennis provides like a strong tennis player versus a strong ping pong player? Which one do you think has kind of a leg up in terms of getting to the elite level?
Mm, this might be a little bit biased. I think definitely like anyone who wants to get into pickleball and just be like a solid rec player and get to 5-0, I don't think it matters at all. I
Hmm.
think it just you'll get different skills from each background. So tennis players are going to have probably like better volleys and maybe just better like overall point structure and like know how to play points and hit drive and hit hard. And players who play like racquetball or ping pong or other sports like that might have better hands or tricky angles and other shots they can hit.
Hmm.
Um, I do think that, like at the highest level, if you want to compete in pro doubles, um, tennis just gives you like a really solid overall foundation. Like you're going to have the ground strokes, the volleys, the different spins, slides for the top spin, and everything else you can kind of learn from that.
Mm.
There's no major gaps, I would say, besides the third shot drop, which is a gap for everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're a ping pong player, like some other sport, you might have a really nasty, I don't know, flick in 5-0, but like if you want to learn how to like have those hands battles back and forth, or you want to learn like that top spin, like sort of attack from the kitchen line, like all these things are things that I think you might just have a bit of a gap if you don't have the like overall tennis background. So I would say tennis, if you make the full switch, you can learn singles and doubles most quickly. Uh,
Hmm.
that said, if you're like a super aggressive banger tennis player, you might have a hard time. But I still think if I had to choose a background, I would choose tennis over
Good.
other sports. Dylan Frazier is also a good example, just to not be super tennis biased. He has no racket sport background at all. He just has incredibly good hands. And I
Hmm.
think if you watch his strokes, like he's a good example of what the sport would look like if more people who just like start playing pickleball as their first sport get into it and don't learn tennis first. He's figured out a great way to play singles and
Hmm.
doubles without any sort of like classic tennis ground strokes.
Right, right, right. Yeah, nice. Good example. What are your hot takes on the sport? And like, besides the sport, what are your like personal goals for 2022?
Hot takes. I let me think. I want to make sure I'm appropriate. I think I, I guess one hot take this weekend, or just from the sort of my experience so far at these tournaments, is um, one of the reasons I like pickleball so much. I think most people like it a lot at the competitive level. Is that obviously it's super fun. You can compete. You can have that like have that side of trying to win, fighting really hard, be on the court in a big environment. Like everyone loves it for that reason. But also like unlike tennis or some other big sports, it's really welcoming. Like there's room for everyone. Like it doesn't have um, that nastiness sometimes that other sports can have on the court. And I
Hmm.
think, well, of course, there's room, like in all sports, also in pickleball, for all personalities and all people on the court to have their fun. Um, like there, I don't think should be room for people that just like aren't respectful or like don't play the right way.
Hmm.
Whereas in other sports, like people like Nick Kyrgios in tennis, like big ego, but he kind of gets away with it because he's really good, and it makes it for a fun fan base.
Hmm.
Pickleball should really keep its identity as a sport for everyone, welcoming, fun, like no matter how good you are, everyone's friends, everyone's laughing on the court, even at the highest level. I think that's what makes it so, so fun for all these former tennis players and people.
I really do hope that that spirit does like maintain throughout. Um, and then, I guess what are your goals for the rest of the year? Like you've started off the year pretty strong. So where else are
Yeah.
we going?
Yeah, well, definitely, first goal has been achieved. I think my goal was just like to have a breakthrough, like to really start making a name for myself and prove to myself that I could do it playing singles first. So I can check that off. That it feels great to have that, in the bag. I think um, my goals for this year, like my first big goal is post this run, is to get my first medal. Um, I would love to either in the PPA or an APP event, like somehow medal gold, silver, bronze in a pro singles tournament. I think I can do that now that I've proven this to myself. So first goal is to get a medal. Second goal is to start competing more frequently in pro doubles. So to find some men's partners, find some mixed partners, and start to get my hand in the doubles scene, which is something that I definitely need some more practice at, but I think I'm ready to try out. Um, and then thirdly, I think, I want to stick to what I've been doing and really try to focus more on the process and not the results. I try to remember that it's still pickleball. I'm not going to all of a sudden like quit my job and like make a ton of money tomorrow. And even if I did have a big run, like I'm not necessarily, there's no tangible thing that I'm going to change my life for soon. And
Hmm.
so, just trying to focus on what I was doing the last few months, which is train really hard, have fun and like just keep doing tournaments because they're fun and just because I like the competition and everything else will kind of come from there. So my third goal is just to keep having fun and hopefully the results will keep going in a linear fashion. But I think if I have fun and win one medal, I'll be a happy camper.
Nice, nice. Well, you got plenty of time to make that happen. I think like you kind of alluded to this, but like the fact that so many people can come into this sport from different backgrounds, different ages, like, last weekend there was a pretty like strong showing from Gabriel, what's his last name? Um,
Cardio.
Tardio, right? He's like 16. You have like 15, 16, obviously Annalie Waters. You have these young kids like coming in and like just continuing like to perform well. So like the sport keeps you humble.
Yeah. I mean, if you can go play a pro tournament the next weekend, go home and visit your grandma and play with her, like you got to be a little humble, like that's the nature of the sport we're playing. So I think that keeps you from getting too cocky.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. So lastly, is there anything or anyone you'd like to plug or shout out before we close?
I mean, no, definitely shout out to Matt Wood. That's my training partner again. He's a huge reason why I've gotten, I think, to this level. I would plug, again, also Anna Bright. I think another super exciting new player on the scene. I think she's going to do way bigger things than me on the girls tour this year. And yeah, just lastly, I mean, stay following the tournaments. Hopefully, I'll have some more coverage and some more results soon. But yeah, appreciate the interview, and hopefully, there's more to talk about in the coming months.